Guys are ready? This is going to be the Holes wrap-up video. So, first things first, this is my spoiler warning. Spoilers, if you have not read the book, please do so. I'm going to be talking pretty much through the whole plot of this book in a decent amount of detail, definitely more than I started in those chapters that I read on the channel. So, going to, again, leave a link in the description. I hope you guys read it. I hope you guys have read it. If you've not, then maybe this will be something to prompt you into rereading it or reading it on your own and just seeing how it all works together, because this really is just a very, very fun book. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start the overview of the story of Holes. Holes is kind of an interesting book to recap because it's actually three separate stories that kind of form together into one big story. So the present day story is about Stanley. Stanley Yelnats the Fourth, who's our protagonist. He's a kid who just has this long line of family named Stanley Yelnats. They all have terrible luck, and he has some terrible luck too. He winds up being in the wrong place at the wrong time and is accused of stealing some shoes, and winds up being sent to juvie. Only instead of going to juvenile detention, only instead of going to jail, he goes to a place called Camp Green Lake. So the interesting thing about Camp Green Lake is that it's basically a prison camp. It's a prison labor camp. The boys go out every morning. They have to dig a hole, and then they just come back. So he's stuck just digging holes for pretty much the start of the book. And as they're digging holes, Stanley starts to find out why they're digging holes, because he finds a clue towards a buried treasure. Now, he doesn't know it right away, but it eventually comes to realize that's what we're out here for. We're trying to dig up some treasure. And he also starts to become some friends with some of the boys that are in the camp as well, one of whom is named Zero. Zero doesn't know how to read. He's a boy who's really quiet, keeps to himself, and just a lot of people just assume that he doesn't know anything. That's part of the reason why he's called Zero, even. It's pretty neat. So, Stanley starts to teach Zero how to read, and Zero winds up helping out Stanley with digging his holes, because every day he goes out, he has to dig this 5-foot hole, and it just exhausts him, just out in the sun. And so Zero starts to help him out. The other boys find out that Zero's helping Stanley to dig his hole. They don't like that, and it ends up becoming a fight. And after the fight, Zero just runs off. So Stanley, being the friend that he is, actually goes and runs away from juvie. He runs away from the camp that he's supposed to be at to go and find Zero and go and save him. Eventually, this is a nice book. He does find Zero. They do climb up a mountain and find a source of food and water, and they have enough time to gain strength, and then they come back for the treasure. So that's where that is. Now, the part about the stories coming together is this part here. The other two stories are really just about Stanley's family. He has, his great dirty rotten no goods pig stealing grandfather, Elya Yelnats, which I read about in the book some, but he winds up having his part that I read. But he has this other character that's named Madame Zeroni, who made a promise to him. Made him promise her that he would carry her up a mountain and help her to drink from water and eat some food there, and start to become well a little bit. And the part of it that comes back and ties in together is that we find out that Zero, his name is actually also short for Zeroni, and he's a long lost descendant of hers. So when he brings Zero up the mountain and he finds him and he rescues him from dying out in the desert, he fulfills that family promise. And also, the other third story that's in this book, it kind of involves Stanley family, but it's not specifically about his family. It's about this outlaw called Kissin' Kate Barlow. She was an outlaw who operated around Green Lake, where the story is set, and she became an outlaw because she had this man that she loved who was named Sam, and they were wanting to be together and they're wanting to run away, but the reason that it all goes wrong is because this is back in the Old West time, and Sam is a black man where Kate is a white woman. And so Sam winds up getting lynched, and Kate just becomes this outlaw just to take her revenge out on the town. And as Stanley's, I think it's Stanley Yelnats the first, ours is the fourth, so that's a great grandfather, I believe. Yes. As Stanley Yelnats the first is coming through on his way to California, Kate Barlow robs him, and she buries the treasure in the bed of Green Lake. So the treasure that they've been looking for this whole time is actually a treasure from Stanley's family. And they've just never been able to recover it just because they've had just this awful luck until Stanley finally takes Zero up the mountain and fulfills that promise. So when they come back down and they find the treasure, and there's this whole standoff, and I'm spoiling so hard right now. Spoiling so hard right now. But when they do find the treasure, on the trunk is written the name Stanley Yelnats. And they're finally able to have things break their way. And it's just such a fun story. I just really, really love it, and I hope that you love it too. Because like at the start of the book, there's just all these puzzle pieces just lying around, just waiting to start to get put together, and that's kind of what drives you to read at the start. It's just, okay, I'm learning about his family, but what does this have to do with it? Why, if Zero doesn't know how to read and they become friends? Like, it's just such a puzzle that you try to work out. There's mystery that's at the center of it. And then it just starts to fall into place. And when those start to fall into place, that is just such a satisfying thing to find in a book. I mean, the characters are also very fun. Stanley is just a good guy. Just like through and through. I found him very, very relatable when I was a kid. He's kind of quiet, he thinks a lot, and but he's able to like push through a lot of stuff. Like, he talks about the first time that he digs a shovel, or digs a hole with his shovel, he gets like all these blisters on his hands. And he has to persevere, and he has to like figure out a way to make it not suck so much. So he puts his hat on his hands, and he just learns to find little things to like take them as they come, and to really like them and enjoy them. And when he actually like starts to teach Zero how to read, that's something that is another thing that kind of pushes him and drives him to want to do better and want to, he always has a goal. And Zero's just like a kid who was really, in a lot of ways, really smart, and he just never really knows it. He doesn't know so much about himself because he's just always been Zero. And so you kind of start to peel back the layers on Zero some as well, and that's just really, really fun. And they're like the two main characters, and they just nailed them. Louis Sachar just nailed them. Absolutely love this book. But there's something that I noticed this time as I was reading it that I hadn't really noticed before when I read it as a kid. I just noticed the staff of Camp Green Lake a lot. I mean, I want to be a teacher. I've been working towards that. I've been working as a camp counselor. And now that I've had that experience, as I'm reading this, I just constantly just pick up, there's so many moments when the staff could have stopped things from getting to where they were. They're just so uninvolved. Like, at one point, when there is a fight that, Stanley and Zero get into that causes Zero to run away, the counselor's there. And the counselor is just there, and, when Stanley gets hit, he just says, well, hit him back. It just blows my mind now that I see it, and, things are broken all the time, and two kids just run off into the middle of this dried lake bed that's a desert with no water for miles around. Something that, if that happened, people would be fired for, people would have to go out and find them, police would be called, but they just write it off. They just write it off, and it's like, oh, it'll solve itself. They'll come back for the water. And they don't even go to look for them, and it just blows my mind. But that's something that's just a testament to how well done this book really is. That when I first read it, like all the way back in about 2002 or so, about a year before the movie came out, all the way now to 2020, 18 years later, it still surprises me, and it's still just a book that I'm excited to get back into and actually finish, because I am going to finish this book on my own. I will let you guys enjoy the book. Oh, hi there, Juniper. I will let you guys enjoy the book, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I don't want to make a 30-minute video like the last one I did reading. Hopefully you guys really enjoy it. In the comments, let me know what really just hit you for when you read Holes or listened to Holes or were rereading Holes. However you ended up taking it in. Also, any books that you have in mind that you think would be a very fun read to hear read aloud, leave those in the comments. There will actually be comments this time, unlike some of my other videos. And I hope that you guys really enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoy just reading books. I will see you all next time. Thank you.